I'd like to bring in now our very own Malicia Johnson, who is coming to us from Georgia to speak on the celebs who are taking to the streets over the weekend as well. But before we do that, Mel, I just want to check in with you. Obviously, the images and the stuff we've been seeing, it's heartbreaking, if I can put it in one word. And obviously, I'm in California, you're in Georgia. What's the scene out there?
Whew, um, it's a lot going on. Honestly, Denny, the feeling that I'm feeling right now is the feeling of change. I
Mm,
feel uncomfortable. I feel scared. I feel hopeful, but I also feel frustrated.
sure.
And I feel frustrated mainly because, yes, this is an issue where we need to change. We need to change systems and policies, but mainly we need to change people. There's people
Mm,
that need to be changed.
yeah.
And changing people isn't an easy feat. You know, people change only when they are ready. So we're fighting 400 years of oppression right
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
It's definitely a heavy weight on my shoulders, and I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure on the shoulders of all of us. I was raised by a father who marched with Martin Luther King,
Mm,
who was on the forefront of fighting racism here in Forsyth County, Georgia, which was known as one of the most racist counties in America at a point in time. So I grew up well aware that Georgia, Atlanta, where I am, is a pivotal place when it comes to the civil rights movement and
mhm,
fighting for equality when it comes to Blacks. Here in Atlanta, we're known as a safe harbor for Black
mhm.
Americans. It's known as the Black Hollywood. You see that everywhere, right?
Right.
50% of business owners here in Metro Atlanta are minority business owners. And of
Mhm.
course, it's the birthplace of Martin Luther King. So we're no stranger to demonstration. But I will say this, there's two types of demonstrations going on here in Atlanta. On one end, you have the peaceful protesters, the people that are coming out organized, they're strategic, which unfortunately is not getting that much news coverage as the
Mhm.
chaos we see.
Right.
I saw on the news yesterday, as we're seeing on the news quite often now, there are cops actually joining in with these protesters. There was a cop yesterday that actually prayed with a group of protesters and escorted them around the city, which was beautiful to see. And as I said, on the other hand, you have people that are here to cause destruction and chaos. You know, it's been reported that some of them are part of these groups, you know, white supremacists,
Mhm.
left extremists,
Mhm.
anarchists, people that just don't have the best intention, troublemakers. The last thing I would want to do, and I hear this from a lot of people as well, is to allow that, the looting and the rioting, to distract from the fact that Dylan Roof can walk into a church and kill 9 Black
Mhm.
people and walk into jail alive,
Right.
but George Floyd just uses a counterfeit $20 bill, allegedly uses a counterfeit $20 bill and dies, is
Right.
murdered. So it's definitely a eerie feeling in the air here, for
And
sure.
and it's eerie because it really is history just repeating
Yeah.
itself. Like George Floyd's death is not an isolated incident, and the frustration and the anger and the pain that a lot of Black Americans feel have existed for decades, for
Yeah.
years, and so obviously we're seeing a public outrage and a public outcry, and I would make the argument that you know it's hit a fever pitch.
Yeah.
It's hit a fever pitch, and we've seen a lot of people show up. And obviously, we're an entertainment news brand, and so I have to mention that we've also seen a lot of celebrities step
Right.
up in various ways in protest following George Floyd's death. We saw Ariana Grande and
Mhm.
Halsey among many, many protesters in Los Angeles and across the city. Halsey participated in the protests in Los Angeles on Saturday and then in Santa Monica on Sunday. And she even recounted and shared her experience about protesters being hit by rubber bullets. She even
Mhm.
said she went as far as to help someone bandage their wounds on their face. What was your reaction to these public figures, these high profile figures really showing up over the weekend?
I mean, I think it's necessary. You mentioned Ariana. She said that she was protesting in Beverly Hills and
Mhm.
Hollywood in a peaceful protest that didn't get that much attention. As you mentioned, Halsey, Kendrick Sampson, who was a part of the Insecure cast, he
Mhm.
has been on the front lines of this
Yeah.
fight. He actually got hit by a rubber bullet, and he stressed on social media that these things hurt. that they literally can kill.
Yeah.
And you have people like Nick Cannon, who is in Minneapolis right now, and he felt as if he needed to be on the front lines first and foremost to see this community and to see the love that they have for each other. And he wrote an essay in Variety, and I just want to point out a couple things that he said. He said, when it comes to solutions, I think it starts by moving the word police. Why be a police officer when you can be a peace officer? And I recommend, too, for everyone watching to do some digging, do some research on the history of law enforcement in this country. And
And
you'll see
police
exactly
brutality.
in police brutality, but
Yeah.
where law enforcement stemmed from. There's a such thing called slave patrols. So do some digging, do some research. I don't want to dig too much into that right now, but you'll get a more clear understanding on what he means.
The
He also
historical
mentioned,
context. Yeah.
he also mentioned that his kids are scared of police officers. His and Mariah Carey kids are scared of police officers because they look at them as bad guys.
Right.
You also have J. Cole, who protested in Fayetteville, North Carolina, his hometown. Tinashe, Lil Yachty are just a few other celebrities that have been out. Denny, this is something I spoke to you a little bit earlier about, is the shaming that's going on social media when it comes to celebrities. Beyonce got online and she said her spill, how she feels about the situation.
Right.
People started coming at her in the comments, saying that she should be doing more. She's a narcissist. Her mother, Tina, actually had to go in the comments and check some people and basically say, don't point your finger at my daughter for doing what she's doing. You do something yourself. I think it's very important for us all to realize on social media that, we still live in this day and age where if you don't post it, for some reason, people think it didn't exist, right? Which is true. There are so many celebrities that are protesting in other ways.
Yes.
It doesn't mean just hitting the streets. It means calling those CEOs and those high offices that can bring Black people into the organization. It's posting bail for a lot of people. You have Chrissy Teigen, who committed to donating $200,000 for protesters' bails, and Colin Kaepernick doing the same thing. So the last thing we need to do is shame people for how they're choosing to approach and protest, and make sure we're all each individually doing our part. Everybody can't be soldiers. Everybody can't be on the ground. There needs to be generals. There needs to be strategists.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to play their part.
I think that's such an important point, because I think there's a lot of people in this country who feel helpless and don't know what to do. And, for a lot of people, this moment has brought them into activism for the first time. Yeah. But you're right. There are other ways that you can help. And I do agree with a lot of the rhetoric that people are sharing that silence is complicit. So I'm like, post away, do what you got to do. Whether that means you're taking to the streets or not, just make sure you're not silent in what's going on. And that's exactly, and to your point, if you have the resources and the means to actually enact some change in a different way, do so. Jay-Z, he revealed that he actually contacted and had a very frank conversation with the governor of Minnesota to make sure that the officers who were complicit in George Floyd's death be brought to justice. So, that's the way he's trying to make an impact. So there's no right or wrong way. It's just to make sure you're using your voice and that you're on the right side of history.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I totally agree with you. I think everybody should say something. Yeah. But once you've said something, how you choose to move and make a difference after that is up to you. It's totally up to you. And these are people that are actually doing the big moving and shaking. So the last thing I feel like we should be doing is spending our energy shaming celebrities on, you need to do more, and you don't know what they're doing. Do your part, worry about you, and let everything else happen and come together, because we don't have time to just be wasting energy at this point.
Exactly right. That is so well said. And Mel, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. And ET Live and Entertainment Tonight, we're doing our part too. Coming up after the break, we're actually chatting with activist and Women's March co-chair Tamika Mallory, whose passionate speech following the death of George Floyd and during the protests in Minnesota has gone viral.